the most important thing is, why are you doing it? There has to be an innate reason why you're putting an event together.
Welcome, friends, to a podcast with interesting people. I'm Adrian Sinclair, and today my guest is Brant Vogt, an entrepreneur, coach, and speaker, and also a founder of the mindfulevents.com website, where he organizes remote events and in-person events, now more remote because of all the COVID stuff, but conversations under the theme of I Am Superhuman, a conversation on health, wealth, and discipline, how ordinary people are achieving superhuman success, and how you can too. Welcome to the show, Brant. Really glad to have you here. Very excited that you are able to join, and we're going to be talking about so many different topics. I'm very excited because we're going to lead into it with talking about money and lifestyle and leadership and mindfulness and all the things that you've learned in your career and how they shaped what you're doing right now. So again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
So why don't we start off with just talking a little bit about you and share one thing that's interesting about you that people may or may not know about you.
I'm in the financial world, and I help people plan for their future. And usually as I get to know my clients, when they find out that I was a DJ prior to being in the financial world, I kind of throw them off guard. So it's always a kind of funny surprise, I guess. I don't know what a DJ looks like or doesn't look like, but evidently I don't look like one when I'm speaking to my clients. So it's always cool to kind of, when that does come up, that there's a little reaction there. Headphones
and a turntable. The wonders of this show, where we talk about, when I speak with, host a lot of interesting people, is learning about their sort of background and their journey. We all start somewhere, right? And we kind of evolve through our life and learn different things. And it is always interesting to kind of hear these types of stories that someone came in like, oh yeah, I used to be this and that, and now I'm this and that. And I think it's just such a wonderful thing to have as a kind of a background about someone, because you're like, oh wow, that person is human too. Not only like this whatever label you want to put in over here, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, or professional in whatever ways. Like everybody had some kind of passion or some kind of a path that they kind of went through and in their life. So you founded mindfulevents.com, which is right. I'm just going to pop this poster over here from the website, and you have had a lot of interesting people on. You've been doing this for how many years with Mindful Events?
My first official event was 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the story that I was telling you about. This was way before social media. Actually, social media existed, but I wasn't essentially comfortable using that for marketing purposes. So marketing was text messaging, emails, phone calls, just your traditional form of marketing. And,
right. Doing these events and connecting with a lot of interesting people, guests, and in those events and in person events. What are some of the top either guests that you had or events that you were at that changed and shaped your life?
Mm. Well, the first event we hosted was Dr. John DeMartini. Most people have seen him in the movie The Secret, the film The Secret, the book. That's the one where we were able to gather a bunch of people there. We had 30 plus people there in a total room of 60, just with text message and emails, and that was just the fact that we were able to pull that off was awesome. Another event that we hosted that was really impactful was with KRS-One. He's a legendary hip hop artist, stood the test of time, has very good, interesting view at the world, very intelligent, and we were able to put that together. That was very impactful as far as bringing, bridging a gap where people would just kind of see that as a hip hop show, but we, before his show, we actually had him speak to his audience. So it was a breakthrough event, which was amazing. Personally, impactful. I think there's two. There's a company called Landmark Education. I believe that's where I received probably like my greatest breakthrough, where I felt I was meditating but with my eyes open. It was a very, where I basically lost all thought in the moment. I was just being. I had no thoughts coming in, coming out. It was the most present moment, one of the most present moments I had ever
The moment of Zen.
felt. Yeah. The other event that was very impactful. I attended an event with John Assaraf. He was also in The Secret. I had read his book, and then I attended an event in California. It was a 3-day event, and that was it was a 3 day straight spending time at his house, getting one-on-one coaching with him. Not one-on-one, but it was pretty much one-on-one. There was like 15 of us. Mm-hmm. So off the top of my head, those have been the most impactful.
Doing these events, especially around the topics that you kind of orbit around, which is the money and lifestyle and leadership and mindset, brings in an interesting set of guests that impart their knowledge that you learn from, and it's a great way of networking. It's a great way of growing through other people's experiences, right? That's kind of like what I'm experiencing over here with this show, inviting interesting people like yourself and learning from them. And what you're doing with Mindful events is a sort of a platform where like these people can come in and share their knowledge. And this is we're living in this time right now with internet accessibility almost everywhere, with a lot of knowledge that's kind of floating on the internet. You can kind of pick and choose what you're into and kind of learn from the experts. But it takes time, it takes effort, it takes planning to organize those events. And you've been doing this for so many years, like, when internet was at its inception. And I'd love to hear from you what you've seen, across the, years of technology evolving. What has worked in the past that still works? What has worked in the past and it doesn't work anymore in terms of like organizing these events, bringing in these interesting guests and people to the table to kind of sharing their knowledge. Share a little bit about like that journey. What would be some of the top things that when you organize an event right now that you go to, your go-to things to kind of organize and make it a success?
That's a great question. The most important thing is, why are you doing it? There has to be an innate reason why you're putting an event together. Looking back, whenever I did host an event, there was something I wanted to fulfill. There was a void. There was maybe a lesson or a message that I felt needed to be shared to the community. My experience goes back in the mid to late 90s, when my first events were DJ events, where there were DJ competitions or music events. There was just none happening in where I was living. And then that transitioned into additional music events. But there was always a why. I was like, this sound is not on the stage. This sound needs to be heard. People love this sound, but it's being drowned out by all these other events. So when it came to mindful events, I was reading the books. I was, when I was transitioning out of my music career into my financial career, I had to change. I was not comfortable with, talking to people. I never read a book in my life. So as I was reading these books, listening to these artists, I'm like, wow, how cool would it be to hear this person who I've been listening to live in my backyard, in stage, maybe meet them, get personalized questions answered. So that was always, whenever putting events together, it was the why. Now, prior to the digital age, where there were flyers, literally print thousands and thousands of flyers and just cover the community with them. I mean, there was no way around that.
Right.
Very, very little radio advertising at the time, but it was really just lots of flyers. And I think that's still effective, and people have gone away from that. But moving into the digital world, I think sometimes people depend too much on one platform, whether it's a Facebook invite or there was email campaigns. But now there's Facebook Lives that you can market. So really why is the most important thing, and then really having a team around you. It's okay to have people help you for free. Find out what you're great at. So if you're great at marketing and speaking, then maybe that's what you should be doing. But maybe you shouldn't be doing the accounting at the same time.
Right.
Or you know for example, I don't enjoy putting a flyer together. That's the last thing I want to even pay attention to. I'd rather kind of look at the final image or maybe proof it, but I don't want to be involved with that process. I enjoy maybe finding the speaker, having the relationship with the speaker, hosting the speaker at the event, and just really putting the message out there. So having a team around it, some people that believe in what you believe, that want to see this come through. And that's one of the beautiful things about what we're up to right now. We want to support local events happening all over the world. We're in a time right now where we need to be learning outside of the curriculum that we were programmed to learn. Go to school, get good grades, pick a profession from this menu, and then read these texts, and then
Right.
graduate and then don't read anymore. So learning really continues, even more importantly for most, right after college. I mean, even better when you can have your children start to read. So having these local events, even as a form of advertising, if a local chiropractor wants to put an event together, a local nutrition store, a fitness, it doesn't matter. Even any business can host an event that can bring like-minded people to their community, and it's just a great way to market.
What we in a way nowadays with the internet and prolific access to information, we almost got spoiled how easy it is. When you mentioned like, oh yeah, we used to text information about events or print out tons of flyers and just kind of canvass the neighborhoods. Nowadays you can just kind of blast it out, especially if you have an audience or a platform, you can blast it out and get a lot of people interested, or even not, you can just basically advertise it on the internet. And in a way that kind
Right.
of brings in, with that kind of proliferation of information, brings almost it brings the overwhelming number of events, overwhelming amount of information that's available right now on the internet. How do you compete with all these different things? Do you compete? How do you want to make yourself like stand out when you're organizing these events?
It's another great question. When it comes to competition, I don't even think that, that's not even in the realm of my thinking. It's almost, there's so many cool people with so many cool messages. It's really, what are you resonating with? And if you're resonating with this, then there's other people that are resonating with that as well. And you're really just putting on an event that is going to resonate with the people that want to hear that particular message. It's almost like if you're a book reader, one of the books are awesome to read, and then what comes along with reading books is there's so many books to read.
Right.
My uncle years ago, who was a big influential person on my music life, he goes, remember I was a child. He says, I wish that people would stop making music so that I can just listen to all the music that's been made up until this point, right? So when it comes to competition, now that doesn't mean we still need to get innovative. There still needs to be making sure that you're on point with all the platforms, that you're able to use all the signals, whether it's email, social media, forums like this, even the old school marketing where it's radio, billboards, flyers. I mean,
Classic advertising
it all depends
approaches.
on
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it all depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
So
I like that you started with, what is the why? Why are you doing this? Because that to me is speaking about, validation. If it's something that's interesting to you, maybe there's other people to whom the same thing is interesting to. And so
right.
people tend to think about, oh, there's just so much of stuff out there, like the, information of, overload and everything. And so I'm glad that you said what you said over here, how, if I'm going to put it out there, if it's interesting to me, there's going to be others who will be interested in this. And it's almost like magnets attracting. It's like you put it out there, and and those people, at the right time, when it's right time for them, they'll get somehow, introduced or notified about it or find out about it somehow, and not thinking about, oh my goodness, there's gazillion of these. Are we going to be better than everybody else? Is something that you're almost like focusing on the negative of that. Exactly. It's kind of like, hey. It's like a Chinese buffet, menu. Like you pick what you want, and everyone is going to pick what they want. So just putting out quality content, putting out something that is interesting will attract those people who are in that right space and time to be part of it. And if you have that kind of mindset, you're not going to be too hard on yourself, right? You're going to be like, hey, I'm putting this out, and whatever happens, happens, and it's going to be interesting either way. And I think when you have that kind of mindset, it's just not as stressful on you. I mean, there's still organizationally stress, right? Because you're like, I got to make sure everything works and all of that. But in terms of like, I'm not competing with, I have to outcompete everything that's out there. I think that's kind of like a mindset that's going to just bring you down.
Right, and it's really about an impact. You want people leaving an event completely, or just somewhat more transformed or changed than they went. I with some of the events we've done, it's been kind of cool. We've done them in local bars in Miami, and it would be the last place where you'd host a mindful event. I mean, not that it would be, but it just from a perception standpoint, meditating at a bar is like somewhat of an oxymoron, but we've done it, and really we wanted to create relatedness, meaning adults were already maybe used to that, that path. Hey, let's go out on a Friday. Let's go out on a Saturday. So what we would do is we would get a local venue that normally would have people coming out at 9, 10, 11 at night, but get the venue at 7, get people in there earlier, and just have speakers and sessions where there is meditation. And what's the most amazing thing is, and this is what I love about our concept of mindful events, a lot of personal development events attract people that are in the personal development path. Mm-hmm. Right? If you go to a Tony Robbins event, I mean, tickets are very expensive. There's 10,000, 12,000 people there, all spent a lot of money on tickets, but there's Tony Robbins fans going in. And those are a lot of people that go to Tony for the first time, naturally. I mean, there's always newcomers, but one of our goals is to break the ice for people that didn't even really know personal development existed. Maybe they got invited by a friend. And I was going to mention one of the most impactful moments my memories of the events is at the end of the event, there's servers there, there's the managers of the venue, there's the bartenders, and they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. When are you going to do the next event? And here you have a bartender who maybe, had a vision for the future or didn't, or it was just, I'm just giving you my gathering of what I saw, but just seeing a regular person get exposed to inspiration and knowledge and overcoming adversity and just knowing that anybody can win, that to me is probably more special than somebody else who's a little more seasoned coming in and go, hey man, that was cool. So it's really, that's really the goal, is that people don't know what they don't know. And if we can create more micro events and events that are more touchable and easy for the average person to just be invited to and get exposed to, hey, I can work on my mind. Hey, breathing intentionally on a daily basis can reduce stress, and I don't have to take those medications. Really, that's what it boils down to. It's really going to the core of the fundamentals of just living a life that is not stressful, or you can minimize the stress, minimize the anxiety, minimize the need for pharmaceutical drugs, and that's really where we're headed with this. Let's
talk a little bit about your path to where you are right now. You mentioned transitioning from, I mean, we all have our lives and unravel before us, and we make decisions where we want to go with some of the things. Some of the things are kind of, the universe places little milestones for us, maybe, or maybe like hints, like, maybe this is good for you. And tell us a little bit more about how you transition into this space of personal development, coaching, mindfulness, and of course how all this ties in with personal growth in terms of maybe even wealth, and how do you kind of tie all that together? How is your path? How did your path take you where you are right now?
I take it back to one moment. I was a teenager, and I grew up playing sports. And then I remember watching the TV. It was in the kitchen, and my dad was there, and it was literally a TV with the antenna and the tinfoil on there. And some NBA player got a huge $1 million contract, and to play basketball. And in that moment, I said, "Wow, getting paid to do what you love." I said, "Okay, I like basketball. I'm going to do that."
Yeah.
So in that moment, I kind of got a download, and I'm thankful for this download from God. I would say that I said, if you're gonna go make money, why don't you find out what you love, and then you can, it's not really work. And you've heard the saying on that. So I started playing basketball. Then I went to college, and I had a choice to continue playing basketball at a small school or go to like more of an academic college. I went the academic college route, and I was really hurting that I didn't continue to play basketball. And then I found DJing and music. So that was my next love. So I said, so I was intentional about basketball. I was intentional about music. And then I did basically DJed for 10 years, graduated college. I moved back to Miami, and then I got married. And then, so this was a time frame from about 1996 to 2005. I DJ'd with blinders on, right? And you can see the vinyl on the back. I was a big I'd listened to music my entire life, but then I saw that I can earn income in college and doing something I love. And I graduated. I just wanted to continue doing that. So that's where the events started. I was doing events. I had my own record label. I produced some music. I was DJing. I was selling my records online. So I had some entrepreneurial, experiences. And then multiple things happened. I got married. And my wife we've been together 25 years now. She actually bought my first needles in college to get my DJ career going. So she was with me the entire time. But as we got older, it just got a little old, so all my friends and family stopped going to the clubs with me. And, I was working 6 nights a week. So I wasn't, I was basically a self-employed person. I didn't have a business. If I didn't work, I didn't get paid. The music, I stopped falling in love with the music. The music was no longer enjoyable to me. The new music that was coming out, it just didn't move me. And I was not being authentic when I was DJing. I was more forced to play requests. And it wasn't forced, but to stay relevant, you had to stay with the times. Right. So there was a lot of writings on the wall. My wife wanted to grow the family, and she just didn't see how that would happen. So during that time frame, I started getting my licenses in the financial services arena profession as a backup plan. I figured, I don't know, I got some time on my hands. Let me get some licenses, learn another profession. I did have always some interest in finance. That's what my college degree was with. And then 2005, 2006 is when I started leaving DJing, and a couple of things happened to answer your question. And I wanted to give the timeline there just so it all makes sense. I had never read a book in my life that wasn't forced for me to read. It was all textbooks. I think, the only book that I enjoyed reading was the biography of Jackie Robinson, and I chose that book because I had to do a biography, and I did it twice, right? That was the only real book that I read. Thankful for that. I learned a lot about adversity and what a superhero that gentleman was. But when I went into sales, and if you go into sales and you go into the people business, there's just, you start learning about the personal development arena. So I started saying, read books. Now, at the time, it was read books. YouTube wasn't around. There wasn't a lot of the other learning. So it was read. So I said, okay, I'll start reading. So 3 things happened to me that impacted me. I read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Mm-hmm. I watched What the Bleep Do We Know, which is all on quantum physics. And then I watched The Secret. And it was like a whirlwind. I was like, oh, my God, where has this information been my entire life? And I knew I had to change because I was a DJ, but I wasn't a DJ that liked to speak on the microphone. I would pay somebody to do that because I was just scared. So now I had to talk to people and get in front of people and learn a whole new skill. I had to change, and I had to change fast because I had a mortgage. I had a wife. I had a family on the way, right? So I had to change quickly. So I started devouring books. I started going into coaching programs, and I just started changing rapidly. And then naturally, if you when you watch a good movie, you eat a good meal, you want to share, right? You want to share your experience. So I just little by little, instead of distributing music and having people move, I'm like, hey, you got to read this author. You got to, watch this video, check out this coaching program. Let's go to this event. And I just started naturally sharing the experience of growth that I was having, and that's how it led into the mindful events aspect. Is I just wanted to go to some events, and I said, well, you know, I don't. There's no events happening. Might as well put one together myself. And it just kind of that, you know, when I said basketball was intentional, DJing was intentional. This wasn't intentional. It just almost happened as a result of just naturally wanting to share, and now here we are.
There's something about when you share it. I mean, it sounds like you get pleasure from that as much as I do, in terms of like you find something you want to share, it worked for you, and you want to share that with someone else. It's like that special feeling that in sort of like in giving you receive, right? You're sharing something that you found out, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, this is so great, you got to check it out. And then you feel so good when you're helping out someone else who, you know, whose life may be impacted.
Yes.
It's funny that you mentioned The Alchemist, because literally a couple of shows ago I had Colm Holland, who was the publisher, the manager in the publishing house that he literally put that book on the map in the English speaking world. He made that as a success. It's and he wrote a book about it called the Secret of the Alchemist, and sharing his journey and how literally that singular moment when he got that manuscript on his table, on a stack of manuscripts, and he was telling me how, you know, something attracted him to this, to I think it was the cover of that book. And he did something that he's never done, which is he took the manuscript home and he read it over the weekend, and then basically he just reached out to his management and he said, like, oh my gosh, we need to print like, you know, hundreds of thousands of these. This is amazing. And they read it, and the rest is history. The international bestseller, 65 or 68 million copies sold. But it's just like that singular moment that kind of, you're here and then suddenly you're on a different path in your life, and going back in mind when you realize that, you're like, wow, okay, that was like that single thing that really put me on this new set of tracks, and there you go. And I see that kind of everybody has that in a way. But I'm curious, what was some of the biggest things in terms of personal development for you? What did you find the kind of like the biggest impacts? What has shaped you from that perspective? Because there's a lot of moving parts in there, right? There's the, you know, your mind, your personal money situation, development, how you kind of weave all that stuff, and then following your passion. What does feel good to you that you're doing, right? What kind of activities do you do? What kind of business are you into? What kind of events you're doing that make you feel good? What were some of the biggest personal development things for you that kind of you were like, wow, this is a, you know, top 3 things that shaped my life from that perspective?
So the outside pressure that caused me to go inside was really money. I was making really good money DJing. It just wasn't working as a lifestyle. A lifestyle was more important to me than music, and so really money caused me to, like, all right, I'm going into a new profession. I know very little. I'm licensed, but I need to learn a lot of stuff. And I had read a book by John Assaraf called The Answer, and in that book he started talking about meditation, and then so I started to learn about quantum physics. I started to learn about the brain, neural pathways of brain plasticity, and I started getting fascinated with how the mind works. Because, you know, the law of attraction and is great, you know, but I wanted to get more in depth. And I grew up, you know, a person of faith, you know, believing in Christ, and that was for my grandmother and my mother, and that was important to me. But you know, there was more for me to learn. I wanted to learn what's going on with the mechanics of the mind. Right. How can a person improve upon the brain that we've been given? So in the book Meditation, I had a baby on the way. I was reading that book, and John Assaraf had a coaching company called One Coach. So it was like $6,000 behind my wife's back. I told her afterwards, I literally bought because I had a baby on the way. I was scared, and I knew I needed to learn, and I wanted to be a great dad, and I wanted to learn quickly how meditation works, and I wanted to transform. So meditation, and really meditation by definition, and I got this definition from Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's been an amazing mentor for me, learning from him. It means to become familiar with. So I started to become familiar with the thoughts in my mind, and I started to learn how to meditate, and I started meditating every single morning. And from that experience, I would, it started allowing me to observe the thoughts and then go to a place often where my thoughts would subside, and I would just be in a place of no time, in no space, and really from there I was able to create. And I can go in depth on maybe on another conversation with that, but that was the most impactful, and so much so it allowed me to connect more spiritually. I had some very good divine experiences with the Holy Spirit, that was special for me, that I would have not happened, in my opinion, if I didn't have all that noise. So meditation allowed me to remove all the noise and the brain patterns that was causing my actions and behaviors from the past up until this point. And the meditation on a daily basis really was allowing me to see what was happening, observe it, not identify with it, move it out of the way, create a blank canvas. Now I can write my future on a blank canvas versus trying to write my future over all of these 60,000, 80,000 thoughts that we now know are showing up on our mind. So that was the most impactful. And I know there was a part two to your question there, but
no, it's like I love to pull on that thread, because it's like lowering that noise level in your mind, which then opens you up to really, either revelations or just seeing things more clearly, right? It's like a fog that you have in front of you when you have all this noise in your brain, and you just are preoccupied constantly with what do I need to do next, and this and this and that, instead of like being able to kind of suppress that a little bit and then see like what's behind the the horizon, looking a little bit maybe further out, and then just more strategically choose what's important. How do you?
Exactly.
One of the things everybody, like mindfulness and meditation, and obviously most people nowadays know how important it is. Especially now, we're recording this still during the COVID pandemic of 2020, and especially now people realize how mental health and their own mental well-being, how important it is when we have the situation of social distancing, doing things remotely, recording, even like what we're doing right now over here, recording remotely and connecting with people remotely. People realize more and more how important it is, the social aspect, the connections with people, that human element, right? So meditation and kind of being able to go inwards and focus on what's important in your life, suppress, a lot of that noise that we have in our brain is key. But my question is, what are you doing? Because that's knowledge. That's knowing that I should be meditating. What are you doing to form that habit of meditating every day? How are you? I always try to tease out these kind of pro tips from my guests, because it is important to figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to convince myself to do it every day? Because it's like, when you learn that this is good, you're going to do it for a week, and then boom, you kind of going back to your own previous habits. What are you doing? What did you find that works in your life to kind of entrench that, so you're doing it on a daily basis?
It's a lot of factors. I think, like anything else, if think of the times when you're studying nutrition, you're just probably better with your nutrition. If you're studying a little exercise, you're better with your exercise. So I found that studying meditation, what's happening in the mind when you do meditate, how you're atrophying, old brain patterns and strengthening new ones and creating new ones. So I think studying's the most important part. One of the most difficult parts is that people have a misunderstanding of what meditation is. Most people think meditation is getting to a place where you're not thinking anymore, and then people sit down for 5 minutes, and then they start closing their eyes and they're breathing, and those 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts, they're actually faced with them, and it's so disturbing that they can't get up and they have to go find the distraction. So
right.
I'll tell you what I do now. Okay, and it depends on your dynamic of your household. Most important thing is to have a sacred space, a sanctuary of such, where you don't have to think. You literally can get up, use the bathroom, and go to your place. Luckily, I'm in my garage. I have an AC in my garage. I'm in South Florida, so it can get hot. But I come here early in the morning. And it depends. It's not perfect every single day. It's it's different every day. But I do have a place to go to, and my family also knows that when Daddy's gonna go meditate, it's a very important time because if and that could be difficult because people around you may not understand why you're doing that. I used to be made fun of, and when I wanted to go meditate, I mean, I have some crazy stories around that, but either I felt bad that I was going to go take time for myself when I was around other family members on a vacation, like, oh, they're cooking breakfast or doing whatever they're doing, but I'm going to go reset my mind. And, but, through time, people understand that it's actually good for you. So having a sacred space is the most important thing. I always use, especially nowadays, I use some form of sound. So I'll get my phone. I have headphones and I use Spotify now, and I turn off my phone, put it on airplay mode, and so I don't have the frequencies from my cell phone, interfering the meditation. And I already have a preset song. I'm always looking through new songs, but I have a go-to song, and I've always had
Mm-hmm.
some sort of go-to song, and I'll play it for long enough until I find a new one, and that'll be my new go-to. But the goal is to think as little as possible. Go to your sacred space, have your headphones ready to go, be comfortable. I actually sit on one of those mini trampolines with another thick mat on top of it. I have a blanket. I have a little sit back, a relaxing pillow, and I actually lean up right up against my records, and I have another little pillow. And yeah, here's my little pillow. It's actually my little place is right here, and it says
I
that
love it.
some little pillow my daughter gave me. And I'm it's within 5-10 minutes of waking up, I'm already headphones in, and then I could go for 20 or 30 minutes, or I can go for an hour. I can go for an hour and a half. It all depends on when my thoughts subside, or even if they do that morning, or my schedule. But really, that's the most important thing. And the sounds that you may want to discover is if you want to look up the Solfeggio scale, or 528 hertz. I use different sounds on that Solfeggio scale, and there's a crazy
What
story
is
around
that?
that
Yeah,
Solfeggio.
tell me more about that.
What I've learned about the Solfeggio scale is it was the original scale that was uh, I guess grandfathered as the scale for music, and then sometime in the 1900s the scale changed, and a lot of conspiracy people say the scale changed from a frequency of resonance to dissonance to install fear in the world. And it happened, I think, right around World War One or War Two, and they call 528 hertz the love frequency. So there's different notes on that frequency that have different vibrations that can assist in healing and all in love and all different kinds of stuff. And there's kind of I forgot the gentleman's name. I'll share it with you for the lines, but evidently the sun vibrates at 520 hertz, 528 hertz. Grass vibrates at 520 hertz. Even Om, the word Om, is this, which they call the sound of God, also vibrates at 528 hertz. So it's evidently it's worked for me. It's just one of these sounds. It's very peaceful. There's different renditions around that. Musicians create their own keys, piano riffs and stuff around that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just there's two reasons for the headphones. I don't hear my daughter screaming in the background, or the grass being cut, or the garbage guys going by. And then the sounds facilitate with maybe getting into a meditative state a little bit quicker. But it's a real cool story around the Solfeggio scale. But
Yeah.
real quick on that, because this is one of the most fascinating things. My grandfather, who's 93, played the trumpet in Cuba his entire life. And when I first had this discovery about this scale, and he could play anything like without even reading music. And then I remember I had this discovery that they changed the scale. I'm like, what's going on? And I said, hey, when you were in Cuba, did they ever change the scale? And he goes, yeah, they did. And I go, why did they change the scale? He goes, I have no idea, but I never liked the new scale. I always loved
That
it.
is so interesting. That was so interesting. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, like, tell me an interesting story around, meditation, because you mentioned, like, hey, there's some interesting stories around that. But I did not know about that scale change. That's interesting. The frequencies and how we respond to certain, frequencies and how our brains respond. There's a lot of studies done around that. The alpha, beta, theta waves, how they kind of impact how your brain, what state your brain is, and there's a lot of research on, neurofeedback that kind of shows how your brain is functioning during certain influences of frequencies as well. So that is very interesting though about the scale. I'm going to have to look into that. Tell me some. So it sounds like meditation.
Mitch Horowitz. Mitch Horowitz was the person that I first started. But a lot of people I've heard discuss it. You Are Creators has one. I don't know if you're familiar with You Are Creators on YouTube. Yeah, they have a good history around the solfeggio scales.
Very interesting. Actually, I think I kind of listened to some of You Are Creators story. Some of the background music is just so I don't want to call it transy, but like in a sense of like you just want to listen to it. It feels good, right? We have those we have some of those. Tunes or some of the music that we love listening in the background because like it just feels good. It's like more than just it's a nice song. It's just like, no, it feels good. It does something to my brain. It does something to me that I just enjoy listening to it. And so if I'm going to distill kind of some of the pro tips from how you meditate is finding a sacred place that you sort of go to, establish this pattern by giving yourself some tools to cue that you should be meditating, whether it's a song or a go-to song that kind of puts you in that mind of like, oh, okay, reminds your brain that, hey, maybe now is the time to meditate, or I love meditating, and pretty much tilting everything in your favor in terms of making sure that you will be not distracted, right? So headphones, listening to something, comfortable place. What is the thought that kind of kicks all that off? Because those are kind of like, all right, I know I need to I want to meditate now, and so I'm going to go to my sacred place, put my tune on. That's going to put me in that state of like I want to do this. You got your awesome pillow, make yourself comfy. But what is that first thing that makes you say it's time to meditate? Is it just something that you just do every single day at the same time, that it's a pattern, or is it something else? Like, do you have like internal kind of like internal signalings that like, oh, I'm kind of stressed out, maybe I should meditate right now? How do you convince yourself that you got to do it now?
Great question. So the morning is just a habit now, and for everybody listening, there's so many different types of meditation out there.
Right. Which one are you following?
Transcendental meditation. There's mindful. I mean, there's so many different types of meditation, and I encourage you to, I really come from a place of creating curiosity for people to want to go do more research and go in more depth work. But really, it's a habit in the morning now. And one thing is just really breathing. I want to do intentional breath work where I'm, going. There's a mantra that I kind of say is go back to the breath, which really I'm really thinking of just my my breath going in through my nose, out through my mouth, and I kind of get into the start looking into my mind's eye, and it's just a practice. So it's back to the breath, and it's really so that later I'm not irritable, right? So let's say there's a Sunday, I don't wake up, the girls jump in the bed, or it's one of those days and I don't get to meditate and the day begins, come 3, 4, 5 o'clock, I am irritable. And to your question, that's when I'm like, all right, I need to step away, and I'll go to my bedroom and I'll just either take a nap, like, and do some breath work, get into an alpha brave wave frequency. And that's that first stage of
relaxation.
When your mind starts to slow down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are times where I will meditate throughout the day. In an ideal world, I'll meditate in the morning, and right around that 2 or 3 o'clock time frame. In the 2 or 3 o'clock time frame when most people want to go for that second cup of coffee, I know that it's time for me to like take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, breathe. And what's unique is if I meditated in the morning and then I go to breathe and meditate around 2 or 3, I'm able to get into an alpha brainwave frequency, and sometimes even a theta really quickly, just because of the frequency of me doing it throughout the week. So
right.
So the morning's more of a habit. The afternoon is like, stop what I'm doing, pause, take a break, go reset, come back, recharged.
That is so important to kind of have that habitual thing and to remind yourself that that's what you need to do. Does it get progressively easier as you do it?
Yes, it does get progressively easier because you create the brain patterns around it. Your brain is already ready for it, and that's the thing about it is the consistency. Joe Dispenza says, there's times where because it is really probably it's the most profound experience you can ever give yourself. I mean, it is pure joy, bliss, love. If you are a person of faith, you really are able to connect with your creator. I'm able to hear the spirit that's trying to talk to me, the Holy Spirit trying to have a conversation with me. I ask questions. It's able, so there it is. But the consistency of it, I was going to say that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, let's say he's been traveling and he's been off of it in, different time zones. We have a circadian rhythm. If you learn a little bit about, we all learn about sleep, there's a, based on the, whatever, the when the sun sets and the sun rises, if we can get into that rhythm, then, we have better sleep patterns. But when we're off it, our minds can tend to be a little bit disoriented. So he's mentioned when that's happened to him, he may have to go meditate for an hour and a half to 2 hours to really get into what they call it the gap. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts showing up every day, which is what brain science is saying. And then there's, they become in visions or sometimes sentences, like there's every thought's a sentence, then there's a period, and then there's a sentence, then a period in the sentence. Well, in between two sentences, there's a gap. So what happens is, in a meditative state, that gap gets bigger and bigger, and then eventually they stop, and then that's where like all the regenerative regeneration of the mind, your whole body connects. There's a gentleman named Dr. John Hagelin. I've studied him often, and he says the brain goes in concert. Sometimes we're using the left part of our brain, we're using the right part of our brain, and it just one part of the brain's turning off while the other one's turning on, whether we're doing something creative or doing something more technical or logical. But when you get the brain to go in concert, and that gap happens, and it's called whole brain functioning, as he labeled it, the whole brain communicates. And when that happens, it's Joe Dispenza calls it the most familiar, unfamiliar place you've ever been, because it's so familiar, because innately we're born with this blissful moment that we just get programmed over time from our environment, but we're going back to our wholeness in that moment, but we're not trained to do that. And Joe Dispenza talks about, what if we can learn to become observers, just like we learn how to hit a baseball or shoot a basketball or dance or play the piano. Becoming an observer is a skill that we can develop, but it's consistent, but when you first sit down to start meditating, the observation is real, because you're really just facing those there could be visions. I get a lot of visions, and when speaking of visualization, we hear all about the importance of visualization, and most people, when you hear visualization, you think, okay, I need to have the secret, right? I got to visualize my intention and my future.
Right.
Yet you're trying to visualize over default visualizations that are already programmed in your mind. So you can close your eyes and you can see whatever. You can see all kinds. It could be some weird entities, maybe, or it could be, what you have to do for, your work, or it could be your family. I mean, there's already visualizations in the way, but when you breathe through that initial 5, 10, 15 minutes, and you go back to the breath, back to the breath, back to the breath, they start slowing down, and little by little, because it's almost like they want to pass through it also. They want to get out. They want to get out of the way, but
Right.
we don't give ourselves enough time to get them.
So is that like clearing the slate, so to speak, so that you kind of reminds me maybe of Bruce Lee teaching someone. It's like, here's half a glass of water, and this is your knowledge. You need to empty that before I can pour new knowledge into it. And it sounds like this may be kind of like what you need to do through meditation, to kind of clean that slate so that you can kind of program and download new things that you can focus on. What do you see in terms of one of the things with mindful events and the I am superhuman theme, where ordinary people are achieving superhuman success? What else do you see in others, through your experience doing all of this, as kind of like cornerstone personal development things that worked for people? What do you see out there? What surprised you? That like, wow, I didn't realize that this would kind of have such a huge impact. What do you see out there, people like in their own personal growth, in terms of what impacts them? Any stories where people are engaging in, like whether they are attending one of the events that you put together and you have guest speakers who are, sharing their knowledge and then maybe feedback from people like, wow, okay, I tried that and that just, it blew me away. I didn't think that would work. I mean, clearly meditation is a huge kind of, that's the beginning thing that you should just start off with, just so you can kind of go inward and kind of clear that stuff within you so that you're ready to receive some stuff from the outside, right? But do you have any stories or anything that comes to mind where people are like, shared something with you that surprised you or maybe confirmed that, yeah, I knew that this would work. I knew this was going to be good for you, or something that kind of surprised you?
Well, the common thread is really where you, let's say for any live event or any, but I think live events are so special because of community. There's something special about community and humans experiencing something at the same time. So the common thread, it doesn't really matter if you're on stage and you're speaking. If you're one of the speakers, you've overcome something. You've overcome a fear. You have a specialized knowledge that you want to share. And really there's, if you really take a step back, there's somebody wanting to share an inspiration. They want to share an energy. They want to transmit love in the way that they know how. And people in the audience, they're coming to learn. They're coming to get educated. Even if they're already experienced, you can always pick up little things from speakers that you can improve upon what you're already doing. You can. I think it was Emerson said you can learn from everybody, even the homeless person on the street. And the biggest thing that I think that's so special that I love to observe is just people believing in themselves a little bit more. Right? People walk in. I mean, we all beat ourselves up. I don't care who you are. You beat yourself up. Whether you're Tony Robbins, I mean, we all tend to beat ourselves up, and it's not a good or bad thing. It's just what it is.
Right.
And if somebody can show up and one of the speakers says one sentence that gives them that little pearl of wisdom, that little golden nugget, that they can leave like, wow, I can do that, right? Or I can fulfill or follow through on that project I've been procrastinating on, or it's okay to self-express, this idea that I have. That's the most important thing. It's real. I don't think it's, I can't bring it down to one actual element that is a great cause. There's just so many. But if people can inch forward, because every human being has something to offer, we're all unique. In part, I think one of the difficulties is really identifying what that is that God put you on this earth to go do. And most people think they need to have their purpose now. They need to have their why now. Seth Godin says, most people say, when I'm passionate, I'll go to work. It was a cool podcast with Seth Godin and Aubrey Marcus. He goes, most people think, well, when they're passionate, then you'll go to work, right? Well, if you go to work, then you'll get passionate. So many people are waiting for that purpose to hit them over the head. Oh, I found my purpose. Now I can take off. Well,
right.
What if you have multiple purposes on this planet? What if you just got to move your feet and pray a little bit and just allow what it is you're here to do to kind of be self-discovered while you're already on the path. So really, any inspiration coming from a speaker to the person in the audience that is going to give them a better self-image of them, of how they look at themselves, to take action in any form or fashion. That to me is a dynamic that just blows me away, because it never fails.
We are our own most harsh critics, and when we see successful people out there, we tend to focus on, oh, they're already successful, as if they didn't have these sort of trials and tribulations that they went through in their lives. We see the sort of like end result or something that we focus on, and are not considering or even thinking about, oh, well, that person probably went through a lot of different things that shaped them and impacted them, and they had ups and downs just like everybody else, whether it's Tony Robbins or the most successful people out there. They all are human. They all went through these moments in their lives that they they too weren't sure. I mean, with Tony Robbins, since we talked about Tony Robbins, I mean, how many times was he up and then down and up and down in terms of like his success, right? He was this international successful, speaker and everything, and then he crashed and then, went bankrupt, I think, and then went back up, reinvented himself, and just kind of sharing those stories. That's, I think, in part, that's why his stuff is very motivational to a lot of people, because they see the humanity in him. They see that he went through that same stuff that we are, and that we are going through, everybody. And seeing that in someone else, and especially when they share those stories, just kind of makes it a little bit more real. It's like, oh wow, okay, it's not just milk and honey and all the success constantly. It's a work, it's a journey, and I believe that when people connect to that, they kind of are less harsh on themselves in terms of like judging themselves.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about other aspects. So we talked about a little bit about discipline and some of the habits that you kind of formed around meditating. We briefly talked about kind of changing the mindset and brain. I want to talk to you about two additional things. Let's talk about wealth. Let's talk about money. What is since that's kind of your one of your domains of expertise, and everybody focuses on money, and some people say that money is the root of all evil. I've heard that what more resonates with me is the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is just an energy vehicle to me. It's just it's a thing. It's a tool. It's just like any kind of tool can be used for good. It can be used for bad. Just like a hammer, you can do harm with that. It can also build something and be constructive with it. What are what are your thoughts on money? What does money mean to you? How do people become wealthy? What have you seen? How are you developing yourself in that domain?
So, as you mentioned, you just mentioned a psychological mantra that people grow up with. Money doesn't grow on trees, right? Money's the root of all evil. Well, money's made out of paper, so it's actually grown on trees, right?
That's a good point.
But you see the young guy driving down the street in an expensive car. He must be a drug dealer, right? It just I can't. Mom, I want to get that. I can't afford it, right? There's all of these things we grow up that form the psychological perception that we have around money. So those are the psychological things that we gotta have to overcome. Or once again, become aware that they're even there. I grew up and, I used to hear my mom just say, put it on the card, put it on the card, put it on the card. Like, just, charge it, right? So I developed that same thing, just put it on the credit card. And that's why I had credit card debt. So that's the psychological. But the logical part is we don't learn about money in school. Go to school, get good grades, pick a profession, to go earn money, to go earn income, but then you don't learn how to manage it. So that's where the logical things happen. So really when it comes down to money, what I teach is how can people become financially independent? And there's many schools of thought, and there's no right or wrong. So I talk about really the get rich slow process is really, now that's, I want to get wealthy faster, but most Americans, when they have jobs, maybe they have retirement plans at their workplaces, but they've never learned how to use the 401k and how to pick the investments in the 401k and how to invest into a retirement, an IRA, or how to eliminate their debt, how to protect their families with term life insurance. We don't learn any of these things. How to save for your kids' college so they don't have student loans. How to create a budget, right? These fundamentals are never taught. So that's really the lessons that I teach. I'm not here to, hey, can you buy real estate and start flipping properties and be wealthy in the next 3 to 5 years? That's not. I'm like, let me teach people how to navigate through the American money system that's already been placed before them. Meaning, what age would you like to retire? If your kids were grown and your house was paid off, what would be an income that would give you the lifestyle you'd want in today's dollars? Well, if you want 5 or 10 grand a month in today's dollars, if your kids were grown and your house was paid off and you had no debt, well, 20 years from now with inflation, you're going to need double that. So if you're going to need $10,000 or $20,000 a month, 20 years from now, how much money do you need to have saved to have that lifestyle, because you probably don't have a pension plan. That's old. That's like a thing of the past, unless you work for the government, and that's still subject to change. Social Security, it's really not enough money. There's also rumors around that. So really, the only way to become financially independent, that's not the only way, but the what's been given to people is to invest your money over a long period of time, systematically, where you're investing whatever you can afford every week, every 2 weeks, every month, so that you can accumulate wealth, and now you can live off of that, and create your own income, for the rest of your life. Now, is that a slow way to get wealthy and slow way to become financially independent? Yes, but is it a better plan than 99% of the Americans have? Yes. The challenge is most Americans just don't have an advisor. A lot of the people in the financial advisory space, they look after millionaires. So my job is more to help people start investing and creating good habits where they can save $25 a month. It comes out of their checking account, goes into their retirement plan. They can save $50 a month, and they start learning how the investments work. And they actually have a game plan, and they have actually somebody with a GPS and a tour guide. So that's really where I come into play. And really, and not only me, but there's, even John DeMartini teaches this. It's just practical lessons. But
Right.
you could give somebody the greatest plan, but if you don't work on the psychological aspects, it's like nutrition right now. It's like there's no lack of information right now. There's actually overload on information on diets and health plans, around whether it's keto or fasting or
Right.
carnivore diet, vegetarian. There's all, but people are so confused. The information's there, but just people need more coaching and handheld. Not only on making sure they're on track using the right vehicles, whether it's 401ks, IRAs, mutual funds, but simultaneously observing what are the psychological factors that could be holding you back. Because, think of a married couple, they both come from two backgrounds, right? This one may come from one financial upbringing, this one comes from another financial upbringing, and they argue. This is the financial planning that they have. It's just a lot of resistance. So when I sit down with somebody for the first time, they get to face me. I mitigate that resistance, and then there's no right or wrong there. It's like, all right, let's create a union around, in a plan where you guys both come together and work towards something together. I think one of the greatest ones is Financial Peace University. Losing my thought of who the it'll come to me in a second. But anyways, there's different programs out there, but it's just not taught in schools, and there's the logical and the psychological have to be spoken about hand in hand. But once again, it's a taboo. It's people don't like to talk about that. How many divorces happen because of money, and I just love being able to sit with couples and for the first time bring peace in that department of the household.
Right. It's I think psychological approach to money, and we all come from different backgrounds in terms of like how we deal with money. Some people had too much of it, and that was a problem. Some people didn't have enough, and that was a problem. Your relationship with money before you do anything sort of like procedural or planned, things that you mentioned, like how to save, how to, maybe, budget better and things like that. Those are kind of like the how-tos, but all of that has to still be, I believe, underpinned by like your relationship to money.
Yeah.
Do you love it? Do you hate it? How do you use it? How do you feel about it? And how do you even think about it? In terms of, am I unhappy in my life because I don't have enough money? That's going to drive you to do different things versus you have maybe gratitude of like, hey, I have enough right now. I'll continue to build my wealth, but it's not, my happiness is not hinging on this state of happiness or unhappiness about my relationship to money, right? You can be like, hey, maybe I don't have enough right now, but here's the things that I'm doing, and just have a healthy relationship with money, I think is kind of key. So that's why I kind of like wanted to ask your opinion and your kind of expertise, because doing this and sharing plans and doing that with people, what are some of the biggest things that make difference to those people who are coming to you for that financial advice? You like, hey, here's the kind of things that we can plan out, but also you have to look at money. What does money feel to you like? What does it mean to you? And how do you, what's that psychological relationship with it?
Yeah, it's really, there's states, that we're in, so whether called inspiration or desperation, surviving or thriving. Most recently, there's several leaders that are talking about, I heard it from Tony Robbins as well, where you're either in a suffering state or a beautiful state. So a lot of the times people are in that frequency of suffering or survival or desperation, whether it's mounting of bills, pressure from their office, wanting to be able to provide. And if you're constantly in that survival state, you're just going to attract more things to be in a survival state for. So you mentioned gratitude a second ago, and that's really one of the things that helped me is I was in that survival state, and it was almost like it was just amazing. So when I was DJing, like I didn't have to do money. I was so focused on music, I knew money would come and it would really happen. But when I went into the financial world, ironically, I had to make up. I went from six figures in DJing back down to, very little. So boom, I was in that survival state, but I didn't realize I was in a survival state until years later that I was like, oh man, that's what it feels like to be in a survival state. And really we got to, we can train ourselves to audit, how we're feeling. And like for right now, if I'm in a suffering state, do I need to go, sell something to make money? Like, and it's very uncomfortable. And when it compounds for a while, you can get ill, you could get sick, and it's just a nasty way to live. But you have to recognize that. So part of the morning routine and the meditation, among some other stuff, which we could talk about here in a second, whether cold showers or fasting and stuff like that. But gratitude is one of the greatest antidotes to shift. I call it the bridge. Acceptance and gratitude are the bridges from survival to thriving, or from a suffering state to a beautiful state. So if you're feeling nasty in the morning, like normally I have, like you wake up and you're groggy and the cortisol's kicking, cortisol wakes you up, and you have that stress hormone kicking in. Well, I gotta transition. So how am I going to transition? I'm going to breathe. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray. I'm going to be thankful, count my blessings, and then I'm going to accept where I am, be thankful, and then start to create for the future. So when you come out of that state of gratitude, you're thankful for what has been given to you right now, and then you can operate from a different state when it comes around money, because money is important to everybody. For most people, it's a very important stuff, but at the same time, it comes from a place of survival, of suffering, and really getting into the right frequency and acceptance and gratitude is really one of the pivotal ways to start to produce from a stance of winning but versus not to lose.
Right.
So really getting into that state every morning is been the most helpful thing for me and many people when it comes to shifting from what brought you to this point around your finances to where you want to go next.
Right. I wanted to ask you about like your daily routine, and we mentioned meditation, we mentioned gratitude, kicking off that day with that mindset of being grateful about things, like even putting a smile on your face. When you smile, like I literally put that on my vision board. You're looking out the window with, beautiful view or whatever view you have. You just look out in the distance and just smile. Like, wow, I'm here. I'm enjoying this. Even if when your mind wants to kick in and say like, all right, here's 12 dozen things that you need to do today to survive and everything. Like, if you don't have that initial right mindset to kind of put you in that mood, put you in that, that vibration, whatever you want to call that, then the rest of your day is going to be, just really shitty. But if you have that routine of kind of like, hey, just smile, look out there, be grateful, and just kind of get on, like it helps me at least in kind of starting my day in and out. What else are you doing outside of meditation and that kind of morning routine to get you going? Is there anything else that you do during the day to kind of push you to give you a leg up?
Yes. So the order is really, I said meditate, then I pray, and then I visualize whatever it is that I want to, 3 years down the road, what I want to do with my day. Jim Rohn says, start your day after it's already done. What he means by that is see how you want your day to go, and also wait for elements of surprises. So once I'm done with that, I do some form of affirmation or declarations, meaning like I start taking, I use the word I am. There's, the I am is a very powerful mantra to say whatever it is that you want to say. I am successful. I am happy. I am grateful. I am thankful. I am appreciative. So I start doing that, and then I want to move. I want to get my blood flowing. I want some sort of physiological change in my body. So depending on my time, I'll go for a run. It could be depending on my time. If I can only have enough time to run around the block one time, I'll do that. If I can run 2 or 3 miles, I'll do that as well. If I don't have time for that, I try to ground every single day. That means
Mm-hmm.
barefooted on the grass. So every single day, I'll go to my backyard. I call this the 3-in-1, which means I'll go barefooted in the grass. I'll face the sun to get vitamin D, and then I'll breathe, and that's like my 3-in-1 is breath, sun, and feet in the ground. If it's
Mm-hmm.
4-in-1, then I'll start moving. I'll start doing stretches. I'll do some form of yoga stretches. And I'm not a yoga pro, but I do know the basics, and I'll start doing some different yoga stretches, some sun salutations, any type of movement. Anything I can do, jump up and down, jumping jacks, squats, some form of physiological movement. I'll do the smiling. I laughed when you said that because literally on some of my vision boards, I put this little happy face as a reminder, like smile, motherfucker.
Yeah,
So
that's right. It's
so
amazing how just a little thing like that is just psychologically changes your day.
yeah, so that's really it's some form. I love basketball, so I can't wait for the gyms to open back up. But I love playing basketball. And then but some form of and then I like to top it off with a cold shower. Ever
Mm.
since I learned about Wim Hof, cold shower it's not, and it's in South Florida. It's really not that cold, but it's just a shock. So it sucks every single time I do it, but it's uncomfortable. I'm even here's my shirt for today. Your comfort zone will kill you.
I love it.
So and I gotta give a prop. That's my Render Ryder. He's a local artist, so you can check him out. He has some cool, great artwork. It's all with affirmations and decorations. But the cold shower is where I top it off, and it sucks. It allows me to breathe and take control of my mind. Like like you get that shock, but then simultaneously, like, all right, I need to overcome. So you learn to overcome every single morning. You do something that suck, you overcome it, and then you don't feel it anymore. Then it feels good.
Right.
And I'm not talking about hot to cold. Sometimes I just like literally I want that initial cold,
Right.
that's been sitting there for a while because it's the coldest. And then um it's good for your body physiologically. It reduces inflammation. So that's really like my morning routine. It's getting some sort of after the meditation, prayer, gratitude is some form of movement, and
Mm.
really it's really to figure out your own formula. Like if you like swimming, go swim. If you got five, and some people have this programming. I gotta go to the gym for an hour. No, I mean 3 to 5 minutes of something. 30 push-ups, 100 push-ups, pull-ups. I mean it doesn't matter, but some sort of physiological thing, and then you could be fired up. Like this morning, I knew I was going to be speaking with you. There was no way I was going to skip all this stuff. I needed to come fully energized, Adrian, to meet you this morning, and I had to show up, you know, radiant and excited and ready to enthusiastic and ready to rock and roll. So like all of that stuff just puts me. It's impossible not to feel good after you've done all of this stuff.
What do you
So
do in the afternoons? We typically have the day starts off with where you have the most sort of CPU cycles, brain power, because if you had a good night's sleep, of course, right? So we have that kind of capital of brain power in the morning. Then as the day progresses, we kind of are becoming more and more exhausted, and then sometimes we need some kind of recharging in the afternoon. What do you do, if anything, to kind of get over that lull in the day where your mind is just kind of like, your mind and body is kind of just like not in the first gear, like you're grinding to a halt and you need to do something. Is there anything that you do?
yeah. I mean, I'm famous for being in my office right around that 3, 4 o'clock. I turn off the lights and I literally put my feet up on the desk. I'll put some music on, and I'll go for 20 or 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes out. It's mostly a meditation, but it could be a nap. I've gone to my car. I mean, part of my work has caused me to travel around the city, so I'll park in any parking lot, and then I'll turn my phone off and I'll just pass out.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to exercise in the morning, but in the afternoon, if I do feel that 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 stagnant feeling, I will go
Mm-hmm.
for a bike ride or a workout. excuse me, a second time.
Hmm.
Even I love naps, so I think naps are amazing for people. So
Have you
even if I
heard
go
of a
do excuse me,
nappuccino?
a 20 or 30 minute nap.
Have you heard of
No, I
a
haven't heard that.
nappuccino? So, gosh, and I was just trying to cue it up in my brain. Who is the author of this book? But gosh, I'm gonna
I
have to put
like
this
that.
in show notes. It's
I'm taking
basically,
notes here, but so if you see me put my head down,
yeah, it's what he was talking about is a nappuccino is where you drink a cup of coffee for those people who drink coffee and or have drink beverages with caffeine, and it takes about 20 minutes for caffeine to really get into your system and start being metabolized. So he says that essentially he will drink a cup of coffee really quick and basically try to take a nap. And it feels like counterintuitive because you're like, hey, I'm drinking coffee. I'm not going to be up. But it takes that time to 20 minutes to.
wow.
So you set up your timer for like 25 minutes, and hopefully you will kind of start napping within for the first 5 minutes. And then in 20 minutes coffee is starting working in your system, and then you wake up and you get that, he said, like, it's don't do it more than 20 minutes because then your brain goes into like this kind of drowsy mode. And but if you're just going to do 20-minute power nap, and they call it the nappuccino now, so you have a cappuccino or whatever black coffee, and then you get out of it and apparently refresh and everything. So I've tried that, and it's remarkable. It feels like you just had like 8 hours of sleep, and it's amazing. I don't do it every day, but once in a while when I do feel like kind of exhaustion or like I need that, I need my nappuccino right now, and it's amazing.
I never
So
heard of that. That's cool.
yeah, wanted
That
to
sounds
share that.
interesting. Thank
So
you.
we covered a lot of ground. We talked about health, wealth, and discipline in different forms of topics. Anything else that you want to share in terms of what are you into? What would you like to share with others that you found out? Anything that you're passionate about that you kind of want to share with the audience in terms of personal development, or just your life lessons? Maybe something that you failed at and learned something from that, and any good stories that you want to bring up and share with the audience, or anything, any message you want to send out.
You know, really, it's just being patient with your success. It's easy for the mind to compare to other success, especially now with social media and
Yeah.
people posting pictures of maybe them traveling or their
Right.
sexy bodies, or their
Yeah. How do you deal with that?
relationships that they're having.
That
Yeah,
constant
and it's
barrage of
just
like, look at me, look how awesome I am, look at my success, look at my Lambo, look at the house, look at all this stuff, and people are just, whether you consciously or subconsciously are processing this or both, it just impacts you.
right.
And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, we got to go back to go back to understanding that we're all on our own individual paths. That's why that morning routine is so important. And I have this image of a sprinkler. You know those sprinklers that, like, they go right. So, like, throughout the whole day, it's like like no, go back to the breath, go back to the source, go back to you, right? And just self love, and just having a relationship with God, and just giving your time. I think social. I don't turn on my phone. I haven't really looked at my phone. It's already almost 11 o'clock in the morning. I haven't looked at my phone, so it can wait. So my at night I put my phone on airplane mode. My wife keeps her phone off, so if there is an emergency, they know to call
Hmm.
her. Um, but my phone's off, and I don't turn it on until I'm done with my programming, my routine. Then I turn it on, and then I can deal with whatever shows up from that space of I've already I've already self-regulated my body, my soul, my mind, my thinking. Now I can deal with whatever shows up without judgment, without comparing, without the little voice in the head wanting to take control, and I'm able to navigate through everything, just and I don't get stressed out. So really is give your time. If you can give yourself the first part of the morning every single day and separate yourself and do whatever it is that your formula allows you to do, whether it's prayer, meditation. Actually, I don't, it doesn't matter. That's up to you to figure out you. But if you don't give your time to figure it out, then you'll just be, most people are just dealing with, they're a subject of the outside world because they're allowing the outside world to control them. But if you can learn to set the tone and start to control yourself. There was one of my favorite quotes. I don't know where it came from, but it says, if you can't do nothing right, how can you do anything right? Which means if you just can't sit there and do nothing, then how can you do anything? So it's so hard for people to do nothing, yet sitting there and doing, not when I mean nothing, I just mean sit still, meditate, whatever, all the stuff we discussed throughout the podcast. But really, that's the most important thing, I think. And then there's so much you can learn in that moment. That is just so valuable for the rest of the day, not only for you, but for those around you, before I spend time with my family, if I come here and reset, Daddy walks into the house, pumped up, excited, joking around, ready to, have a good time. And if they're in, that's fine. I don't let their grogginess bother me because I knew that I just did what I had to do. So, really that's kind of cool. That's the one thing I want to leave behind. And one thing we didn't talk about, which I enjoy, and I've been taking it on for some time now, is really fasting and learning all about fasting and taking that on. I think it's something that should be researched. Autophagy, if you have there was a Nobel Prize on that, and it means your cell. If you want to check out a buddy of mine, Ben Azadi, he's amazing on this topic. But
I got to reach out to him. I forget what his Facebook page is, but it's something keto.
Keto Camp.
Keto Camp. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Keto Camp. I was gonna wrap up right now, but now that you pulled on the thread of keto, of fasting, that's something that is near and dear to my heart. I did a 21-day water fast, and I survived, and I thrived.
You did 21 days.
21 days.
Water only.
Water only, and some electrolytes, because you need salts, right? You need salts for your brain.
You are a beast, man.
And I kind of journaled my experience, and I've done week and a half, 2-week fast before that, and it's let me see how far I can go with this, and I could have gone even longer, but I think it's very important, and you touched on that, which is you need to listen to your body, listen to and build your own sort of experience and figure out, experiment, right? That's kind of how I am with everything in life. I like to experiment on myself, whether it's eating or putting stuff in my brain, learning wise, all those things impact your whole life experience. And so I did the 21-day water fast, and then I did a month of carnivore. And I had a bunch of guests on my show, Tristan Haggard from Primal Edge Health, talking about his kind of transition and experience with being vegan and vegetarian, and then doing a carnivore right now. Wow. I want to do a vegan or vegetarian first, and then vegan month, and see how that is going to impact my body, and if that's going to what that's going to do. Experiment. And if there's one thing that I've learned from a lot of my guests, is that the tendency and the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's rarely that things are on one side of the spectrum or the other. There's something tendency is that it's somewhere in the middle, but everybody has to find out where that is for them, whether, this works for you or that works for you. Experiment on yourself. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So when you mention things like, cold shower and fasting and carnivore, all those things are the things that I am experimenting with and trying on my own body, and using my body as the gauge for what really feels good to me, what works for me specifically. And that's why I encourage everybody else to kind of go on the same path of figuring out what it is. And it's through the conversations like these with interesting guests where we get that, input from other people, what they've done. And so, yeah. How did you get on that? Was it through Ben that you got into learning about the keto and carnivore, or was it something else? Was it a longer journey for you?
It was when I first learned. It was years ago, probably 5-6 years ago. Maybe it was a combination of health and spirit, the biblical aspects of it. Um, and I just wanted to give it a shot. I heard the benefits of it, and then, but with Ben me attending his programs, I was able to learn how to break a fast.
Right.
I could fast, but breaking my fast was a challenge. So, plus the support and the knowledge around fasting, he definitely working with him helped me increase my knowledge around fasting. So,
Right.
but 3 days is 72 hours water only is as far as I've gone. So,
So
they gotta learn
let
from
me,
you.
yeah. So let me tell you this and share this with the audience as well. My experience is, and it seems to be kind of like just the way most bodies work, is day 3 is the worst. Day 3 is like the suckiest day, because day 1 you still have some food in your body. Day 2 you're depleting that. You're depleting all the sugars, carbs in your body from the liver and glycogen in your muscles and things like that. So you're still running on that energy. Day 3 is where your body is like, I don't have anything to eat over here. What are we doing, right? We put something in your body. So you get this, they call it the keto flu, where you have all these symptoms, like you really feel not yourself. You're not, that's the worst. Like I'm always telling, like, you don't want to be around me day 3 because my body is pulling all the stops out. It's like, dude, you need to eat something now. But once you go over day 3, your body says, okay, I guess we're not eating. Let me switch into what else you got in your body. And that's when your machinery for burning fat kicks in. Your digestive system, slows down, starts shutting down, and your body is basically burning fat, and you get those ketones, which are great, energy source for the brain. Research shows that it's way better than any type of sugars that, our brains love sugar. And so once you go over that third day, then you're getting suddenly like this clear mind, energy, all those things are kicking in, and then you're like, wow, okay, this is great. You just feel much, much better. So I think the key to success is like that, getting over that day 3. The couple of things that I've learned about fasting: prep, to succeed. Prep yourself. So start maybe eating fewer and fewer, sugars for the prior to fasting, maybe for like a week, 2 or 3. They called it sort of like a fat adaptation, where you are training your body that energy can come in from other sources than sugar. And then exiting the fast is equally as important in terms of, don't just like, oh, it's day whatever, I made it, and now you're just going to start eating large out of the can, because you got to give your body time to kind of exit it and restart your machinery, your digestive system. And it's actually a very unique place where you can actually, because what happens is in your body when you're fasting, that good and bad gut bacteria go down, right? So both of them die out, and so you have lower levels of that. So exiting the fast provides a unique opportunity to replenish the good bacteria in your gut. So that's where you can kind of introduce like healthy bacteria from like fermented foods, yogurts, kimchi, sauerkrauts, things like that will basically shift the balance to the benefit, where it kind of build that flora in your gut system with a good bacteria. And so interesting conversations on that as well with one of my guests. That's why I love doing these shows, because it's like I learned so much and sharing these things. I had a professor from Rutgers University who studies, literally they have a huge study on microbiome, and they want to sequence like 1 million people around the world to find out different types of gut environments, and how does that mean, and then use deep learning and artificial intelligence to try to tease out from those terabytes and terabytes of data anything that can kind of give an insight of like what is a healthy microbiome. So very interesting stuff like that. So if you're new to the show, like we're going to provide a link over here to that video, because it's so interesting, that conversation. So anyways,
Yeah,
that's
it's funny
kind of
you
like,
mentioned. I started. Are you familiar with Viome? Viome?
yes, I've heard of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Naveen Jain. Yeah, very unique. So I started
It's
that process, and it's kind of
it
unique.
Yeah, it's the link between gut and brain, the GAPS diet as well, like how how this system is impacting your brain as well, is like very, very interesting topic, and something that people would normally not make a connection, because you think of your gut as like, all right, I'm just giving you food, make some energy, and don't bother me. But there's just so much complexity in this system. When I asked that professor about, is it true that we are mostly like bacteria outside, like 50%, more than 50% of our bodies are like actually not your cells, not your human cells. So it's like you're like, wow, okay, that's so interesting, and it just kind of shifts perspective on these things that you think of like, oh, this is just me, but your gut and all of that has like a lot of different things going on over there. So very interesting.
Amazing.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyways, well, listen, it was so great talking to you. I love
Likewise.
all these aspects that you brought in, all these different perspectives, kind of a lot of validation as well to what I'm doing. So thank you for that part, which is important. I mean, when you speak with enough people, at some point you've definitely are in that position as well, doing, mindful events for so many years and learning from a lot of different people, you start seeing certain trends. You start seeing, some of the things that some people do that help themselves be more successful at things. And it's those kind of pro tips or those revelations from others, or those stories that, that basically we're trying to share over here on the show. So again, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And, I don't know. Any last thoughts you want to share with everyone, or just say goodbye, shout outs, anything else? What's happening next in your life in terms of like mindful events?
Well, first, thank you, Adrian. You're great to have a conversation with, and you're doing unbelievable stuff. I know. I was thinking about you this morning. I'm like, wow, Adrian's working his butt off, and you've been telling me, your progress over our conversations, and I know behind the scenes you are moving and shaking. So I know very soon, sooner than later, it's gonna be unbelievable. It's gonna happen for you. So I'm very excited for you. Want to give a shout out to one of my partners, Lazaro Corrales, who you'll be talking to him. He's one of the guys on the Superhuman videos. I mean, on the mindful events, Ben Azadi, and I'm gonna introduce you to Angie Sanchez as well. There's just a lot of good stuff happen. I mean, the last thing I want to, we do have some events. The website will be done pretty soon. Mm-hmm. And we have some virtual events coming up. Naturally, we're going to be doing some stuff virtually, so stay tuned for that. And the main thing is, you asked about any failures. I mean, I'm full of failures. That's another that we got to do a 10-hour podcast for all my failures. But really is have fun. If I can leave, I know I've sometimes people say, Brant, you're so intense. You look so intense, and sometimes I'm so serious about trying to be successful, provide for my family, accomplish my goals, be the best that I can be, that I forget to have fun along the way. So if I can leave anything with anybody is, get serious with your goals and your intentions, and being the best version of yourself that you can be. But just remember to be thankful and have fun along the way. Look for the fun. And so you can enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride. And you know what? Adversity, it's part of the process. So check out your relationship with adversity, how you look at adversity. And my mom died 2 years ago at she was not even 65 yet. And part of my motivation now is, it was complications of mental health. So one of my big motivations is really bringing mental health in all forms or fashion. We all have mental health challenges. I used to think it was schizophrenic or suicidal or depression. Those guys have mental health problems.
Right.
Well, we look in the mirror. You have a mental health problem. It's just where on the scale are you? So have fun, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think we're going to have another podcast, man. I'd like to invite you again, because we just to kind of give you guys and gals listening to this, just like the list of things that that we can talk about is just so extensive. It's almost longer than my arm over here. So I think there's going to be a lot of other topics that we're going to talk about in the future, and bring in different perspectives. And we got connected through Zappy, and he's doing a lot of interesting stuff. Zappy Zaplin, and so but definitely thank you for connecting me with other guests, interesting people that will be guests on the show. I'd love, again, sharing these perspectives, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking again about some other aspects of our lives. And thank you again for doing what you're doing, the personal growth and helping others, and sharing everything that you shared on the show, because that's what it's for: sharing information, helping. If it changes even single person's life with anything that we've said on the show, then it's already a huge success. And that's kind of what I keep in my mind, because it really is, everybody's unique, and everybody's journey is unique. And if there's anything that can be done to help everybody to kind of have a better experience if they're on their own little journey, then it already was worth doing. So thank you again for being on the show. And thank you. And I'm just going to close out with...
Follow me on Facebook, at Brant Vogt.
Mindfulevents.com. Sorry, I just kind of was thinking about something. I didn't want to screw that up. But yeah, that's Brant's website, and follow him on Facebook. Check out his stuff. Coach, motivational speaker, organizing interesting events, bring in interesting people, and learn from his experience. Hopefully you enjoyed what we were talking about over here. I know our podcasts are just so long, but there's just so much to explore. And if you found a clip, a part of this podcast that spoke to you, that changed your life, consider sharing it on our social platforms. Engage with us on social media, on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook and other social media platforms where we are. Let us know what you liked, what you hated, and we're going to continue these conversations with interesting people, bringing in more and more people to kind of share their perspectives. Check it out, and thank you for watching and being with us. If you made it all the way to here, congratulations. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to a podcast with interesting people. Please subscribe and leave a review or comment.
And support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. And for more information, visit us at apodcast.com. Thanks.